A man who subscribes to the philosophy that out of any adversity can come opportunity. You'll meet him coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at the Fox 43 studio. We're focused on the North American Institute of Aviation and Creel Oil and Gas, and we're visiting with its president and chief executive officer, Benjamin Creel. Good morning, Benjamin.
Good morning, Greg.
Thanks so much for traveling over to Myrtle Beach.
Well, glad to be here.
To get into the studio.
Thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely. It's so exciting. I've heard Donald talk about you so many times, the excitement of having a good friend like Donald. I know you said you'd gotten to be friends with Donald well before ever seeing some of the things that Lucky Dog does and on a regular basis. Of course, we've been so blessed getting hooked up with Donald and the folks over there to produce Carolina People.
I don't believe much of anything that he says about me. Let me throw that in right now.
He said quite a bit.
I'm sure he has. No, but he is a very dear friend, and our affiliation with Lucky Dog has certainly been a positive one as well.
Benjamin, one of the things he talked a heck of a lot about you was your amazing involvement with the Conway Chamber of Commerce. Not only is it, I think, Man of the Year 5 or 6 years ago, but just your activities on a regular basis of helping make that organization tick. What do you think about the Conway Chamber gets you involved?
Well, that story goes back a lot further than you may even know. And I emphasize the word great in this. My great Aunt Laverne used to be the executive at the Conway Chamber of Commerce years ago. And of course I was not involved at that time because I was a teenager probably when she left there. But sort of a family tradition in getting involved in the community. And when I finished school and moved back to Conway, it was sort of a natural thing for me to get involved in the community, and having made friends who were already at that Chamber of Commerce, either as volunteers or staff members, that was when that began. And then, as you alluded to a moment ago, a few years later I was president, and somehow or other the awards committee, I don't know if they were temporary insanity or what, but yes, they gave me awarded me the Community Service Award. I believe it was 1998.
That's just amazing. I mean, what is that like, being the man of the year of anything? Or the person of the year, the community servant of the year? I mean, that's amazing.
Well, it was more of a shock than anything else. But anyway, I mean, I was certainly felt honored and humbled by that. Bit of a story. I was actually, I thought that I knew who was getting the award.
Right.
Who was, in my opinion, more deserving than me. But he got it the following year. But in any event, it was really a shock. I should have known what was up when I...
Can you share with us who that was?
The following year, the recipient was Luke Barefoot.
Okay, right. Yeah. And you thought he was going to get it in 98, and he was on tap for the next year.
Yeah, they had to pull the wool over my eyes because I normally would have been in the know, so to speak.
Right. That's hilarious. Well, that's exciting. You know, you mentioned when you finished school, coming back to the area, and of course, I think I saw in reading about you, you were a graduate of the Citadel in 1986, and then later law school at the University of South Carolina almost 15 years ago.
That's correct.
How have you? What was the impetus to go to law school, and how long did you actually practice law for a good while?
Yes, I did. The impetus to go to law school had to do with one of my professors at the Citadel, who was something of a mentor to me. His name was Colonel Tucker. But in any event, I had an interest in the law and in for lack of a better word, the intellectual side of that profession. But in any event, yeah, I went straight from Citadel, went to USC Law School, and when I finished law school, I practiced law here in Myrtle Beach for about 2 years, knowing all along that my feet were going to take me back to Conway and to Creel Oil and Gas Company eventually. I knew that much at that time. I did not know about North American. But anyway, in 1992, I guess it was, is when I left the active practice of law and began working at Creel Oil and Gas Company.
Let's talk about that. Real quick about yourself, Benjamin. You're from the area. You're an Horry County native.
That's correct. I was born and raised, reared in Conway, and that has been my home all of my life, though I've been fortunate enough to have traveled a good bit and to have gotten an education in other parts of the state. But no, Conway has always been home.
You've got brothers and sisters?
Yes, sir. I had a brother who was killed in a car accident, and I'm blessed with 3 sisters who, among them, have 12 nieces and nephews to me.
Oh, great, yeah. You've got 12 nieces and nephews. Where are they located, Benjamin?
They're, for the first time in many years, they're all located in Horry County.
Is that right?
Yes, sir.
So your 3 sisters are right here as well. That's spectacular.
Yes, sir.
That must be exciting. Do you all hang out a lot?
Yeah, yes, sir, we sure do. This being the end of the Christmas season, we've spent a lot of time together. Won't belabor the point, but we lost our mother this year, and brought us very close together, and we had a really nice time.
That must mean a lot to have. And what about, I think I saw you're the youngest of 5, so that means you're younger than your 3 sisters. What was that like, growing up with 3 older sisters?
Well, I'm sure my sisters are going to be watching this, so I'll have to choose my words carefully. But no, it was, we had a very good household in which to grow up. I cannot count my blessings enough in that regard. Of course, we, like siblings, we had sibling rivalries, and there were arguments and one thing and another, but there was never a lack of our ability to get along and to love and respect each other.
Benjamin, Creel Oil and Gas is a long-time family-owned company?
That's correct. Someone asked me the other day about when my father started that company. It was actually my grandfather who purchased the company in 1943. A little bit of local history. The Buck family, for whom Bucksport is named, it was originally Mr. Buck's business. But anyway, my grandfather purchased it in 1943, and it has been in my family since that time. And you all changed, obviously, the name. And I see on the shirt you're wearing Creel Company, so there's a little more on. I know we said President and CEO of the North American Institute of Aviation as well. How long has that been around? North American itself was started in New Jersey in 1972. So this will be its 32nd anniversary.
Wow.
It was moved for a lot of very good reasons to Conway Horry County Airport by its prior owners in 1978. So it has had an influence on Horry County, and not just Horry County Airport, but Horry County's economy since 1978.
I think I saw there's also another group you're very active with in Norway, the North European
Aviation
Resources, right?
Yes, sir. And that's a bit of a story, but I'll be glad to tell it.
Yeah, please share it. We got a little time.
North American's roots, going back to 1972, New Jersey, have connections to Norway and Scandinavia. The reason being that the gentleman who gave Mr. Brennan, you hear me refer to Mr. Brennan, he is the prior owner, basically gave Mr. Brennan the idea of starting the aviation school, was a Norwegian pilot who was in the United States, working as a charter pilot. In any event, because, and that gentleman ended up being the first chief pilot for the school after it was begun. To this day, now, of course I was just a kid back then, that man is a friend of mine today. He's a retired airline pilot now. But in any event, that is the beginning of the ties between the school and Scandinavia. North American has trained pilots from all over the world and from every state in the Union, but most of its international students have come from Scandinavia, and in particular Norway. Fast forward a little bit, there were some changes in the regulations several years ago, and there needed to be, in order to do international training in Europe or for European countries, there needed to be closer ties between any American school and a foreign school in order to affect the ultimate goal of that training process, which is a European airline transport license.
Mm-hmm.
Probably boring you and your viewers with the
No,
details.
that's fascinating. That's very important. My God, we've got to get overseas somehow, and vice versa.
Certainly. So that is why North American has a relationship, and the reason that I have a relationship with this school in Norway, the name of which is North European Aviation Resources.
Mm-hmm. NEAR, NEAR. That's a good American acronym. I don't know if that would hold much, or I guess it would.
Well, that's how we refer to it. Even the Norwegians refer to the company as NEAR, and that's the way our logo reads.
That's fabulous. Wow, it's so exciting, and of course, not to get into many more companies, but are there more companies of the Creel companies?
Well, no. I mean, there's in the ball of wax that we refer to as Creel Oil and Gas Company. I mean, there's a trucking company and this sort of thing. But,
right.
But
right.
This shirt that you're asking about specifically just represents a reference. And actually, Donald Smith, whom you referred to earlier, designed this logo for us.
Oh, yeah, that's good looking.
But no, that's a reference to North American and to Creel Oil.
Okay. Let's talk about North American Institute of Aviation. I bet a lot of folks don't understand the impact of that, as you said, that it's had on Horry County since maybe 78?
Yes, sir.
Aside from the impact it had already begun to have in the U.S. and overseas since 72,
Mm-hmm.
but the impact in Horry County since 78, it is now associated with obviously with Conway and the airport there. What's happening now with the Institute of Aviation, and how is it impacting the county on a regular basis?
Well, in the big picture, as I like to refer to, the influx of students into the county has had a tremendous economic impact over the years. Tom Seacrest from Coastal did an evaluation of that for us a few years ago, and bottom line in his analysis was that the school itself impacts the local economy to the tune of between $5 and $7 million a year, depending upon, of course, and the number of students who come in here, whether they be international or domestic.
Right.
Because when they come here, they live here, they buy groceries here, they buy cars here, etc.
Sure.
All that's fairly self-evident. With the school itself, what is going on foremost in our minds is we have a new building under construction. Actually, Horry County has a new building under construction as a build-to-suit lease for us.
Horry County is doing that?
Yes, of course. The airport itself is a public airport. It belongs to Horry County Department of Airports, as do the buildings there. And that has been a partnership, once again, beginning back in 1978, between North American and Horry County. We're a tenant of Horry County, and I like to think that, and I think they will tell you that we're a good tenant.
Yes, hopefully so. Well, the county airports the Department of Airports worked so hard to help recruit some aviation groups to the area, and I guess you all have been recruited almost a quarter of a century ago.
Yes, sir. As a matter of fact, I was at Conway Rotary Club just a while ago, and the man who had more to do probably than any other one individual is still in the Conway Rotary Club, and he's always sitting in the back with me smoking a cigarette telling me North American's history that I don't know.
Oh, wow.
He was doing that just a while ago. But yes, the school itself was recruited to come to Horry County. It wasn't a matter of they just picked Horry County. They were looking at several locations, and actually, and the Conway Area Chamber of Commerce was involved in that process as well.
Is that right? Well before, of course, as you said, since you were in high school.
Well, in 1972, I was 8. But,
right, not quite. Excuse me.
No,
I'm
sorry. 78. Should take that as an
14.
Insult,
that's right.
I was 14 in 1978. That's correct.
Exactly right. So neither of us obviously majored in mathematics in school. That's but the exciting thing is to see the transformation of a company like that to make that kind of an impact on the county and obviously on the southeast. But of course, even the greater impact is when these folks are trained and actually get out of here and begin piloting flights all over the world and be able to say that much of their training occurred in Conway, South Carolina. That's a big deal.
Yes, sir. One of my favorite things to do anytime I travel, I usually wear a shirt that says North American, and it's amazing how often either the pilot or the co-pilot up there in the front seat, whether it be an international flight or even a local flight, will say something to me or have one of the flight attendants say something to me. We have graduates working for every major airline in the world, and a bunch of non-major airlines as well, over 60 different airlines. But airlines, of course, that's when we think of pilots, that's what most of us think of. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot more to aviation than the airlines. And, there's corporate work, there's charter work, mm-hmm. There's instruction, of course, mm-hmm. Teaching. Mm-hmm. But anyway, it is interesting and gratifying to know and to be part of something that has had an influence to the extent to which you refer.
Benjamin, why was Conway well suited to house NAIA 25 years ago, and why is it still well suited today? What is it about this area that's particularly good for flight instruction? Well,
and this applies to Conway, and it generally applies to the southeastern United States, mm-hmm. looking once again at the global picture. Mm-hmm. But your two biggest factors when you're trying to do flight training are, it's very simple, airspace and weather. Mm-hmm. They have more restricted airspace in the Northeast than we do down here, mm-hmm. because of traffic congestion, and their weather's not as good. Mm-hmm. On the global picture, that's why the United States, literally since the beginning of flight, most of the world's pilots have learned to fly, whether they be civilian or military, in the United States. And there's also economical factors as well, because of the cost of fuel and this sort of thing. But mm-hmm. I don't know if you've ever been to Northern Europe, but it's not the kind of weather that you want to try to learn to fly in.
Right, not on an annual basis anyway, that's right.
Certainly. Mm-hmm. But Conway has over 240 days of good flying weather. Mm-hmm. And certainly Conway's not the only place in the world that can make claim to that. Right. But once again, other factors, economics, the airport itself, the mm-hmm. facilities, all those played a role in why North American came here to start with, and why Conway is still a good location for North America.
Benjamin, what's it like being up in the air behind the wheel? Is it a wheel? What's it like?
Well, most private airplanes have a yoke rather than a wheel. If you watch television and movies, some airplanes have a stick.
Right.
But anyway, every airplane that I've ever flown, with one exception, has what we call a yoke, and it looks something like a half of a steering wheel. But I'm not going to tell you what it's like. I'm just going to tell you, if you would like to see what it feels like, come out there and we'll give you a demonstration ride.
Oh, wow.
It's not something that one can easily describe anyway, but it's something you need to experience for yourself.
If a viewer wanted to learn about flying, or as you say, take a demonstration, who would they contact at NAIA? What's the best number?
Our local number is 397-9111, and no matter who answers the phone, it will be someone in the flight office, mm-hmm. and they just say, my name is Greg Everett,
right.
and I might be interested in learning how to fly. Can I schedule a demonstration ride? And one of those ladies in the flight office will take care of it.
Are these all daredevils, Benjamin? I mean, anyone who calls, they have to have huge risk-taking abilities, or is this safe up there?
No, absolutely not. I hope I don't look like that person who is a huge risk-taker.
Daredevil.
I mean, me learning to fly is another story. We might talk about that later on. But no, it's usually people who have had an interest in doing something maybe that not everyone else has done. I mean,
right.
it's an infinitely small percentage of the population who mm-hmm. has ever gotten a pilot's license.
Yeah.
But no, they're not daredevils at all. Adventuresome, perhaps, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. or that might be what their friends think of them. Mm-hmm. But no, it's whether it's a career or an avocation or just a hobby. Flying is fun. It gives tremendous business and pleasure flexibility. Mm-hmm. Taking family vacations, this sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But no, you don't have to be a daredevil to want to learn to fly.
And if a viewer is interested in getting a demonstration, what's that going to encompass? Let's say someone called this morning, and even if someone was there or not, they left a message, they called them back and said, how much of the day is it going to take out of them to get over there? Is it going to be actually on the ground, or is this a real flight simulation, Benjamin? This is a big deal. It's exciting.
Well, it's not a simulation at all. But to answer your question, you have a large viewing area, but we're located on Highway 378,
Right.
outside of Conway, 5 miles to the west of Conway. So, however long it would take them to get there, spend about 30 minutes on the ground with an instructor talking about what they're going to do, and then the instructor will take them out, show them how to pre-flight the airplane, the pre-flight inspection, and then they will get in the airplane. The instructor will, go through about taxiing, this sort of thing, and the vast majority of the first lesson, of course, I mean, this only makes sense. The instructor is going to do most of the flying, but the instructor will take whoever that individual is up, show them a little bit about how the controls work,
Right.
turning, banking, climbing, descending, and then that individual will take the controls of the airplane and fly the airplane.
My God, Benjamin, how exciting! Now, obviously, our show is a non-commercial show. How much is this going to cost a viewer?
We have, for just an introductory flight, as opposed to someone who knows they want to learn to fly.
Right.
Because the introductory flight is not as long as a typical first lesson.
Right.
If you understand. If someone who knows they want to learn how to fly and they want their first lesson, that's going to be a longer period of time. But an introductory flight is only $49.
Is that all? You're kidding. That's fantastic. That is fantastic. How exciting.
Well, it is, and we get quite a few calls from them. Of course, we haven't had too many calls.
Well, there's enough room that you could take. We've got viewers obviously all over, and it's so exciting to think about talking to Ed Young about traveling from Florence down to the beach on a regular basis, or Phil Levinas over in Sumter, or just recently Steve Porter was with us, who's a writer for the Myrtle Beach Herald. The excitement of these guys flying over and watching the crops change, watching all the excitement that happens on the ground that you can only see from the sky. We've only got less than 4 minutes, and there's so many things I want to talk to you about, Benjamin. It's just amazing how time has flown, but it's the excitement about hearing these guys, men and women, talk about being up in the air and seeing the world change from above. It must be amazing.
And you mentioned Ed Young a minute ago. I gather he's a pilot.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Flies regularly.
Okay. Well, if I knew that, I had forgotten that. Yeah, he's an old friend of my father's.
He's a big flyer, absolutely. And John Charles was on with us, his son-in-law, about 3 weeks ago, and talked about flying a lot with his father-in-law, either back and forth to Florence or up to the Triangle. So he still does it. He flies up for all the Clemson games. He was with us a month before last and flies a lot still. Yeah.
Good. That's good to know. Well, I'm envious. I don't get to fly that much anymore. And that's because I'm busy on the ground.
Yes. Well, I think you're busy on the ground doing a lot of other things. I think I saw you are a regular hunter with a bow and arrow.
When I hunt, most of the time, it's I do it with archery. I don't have as much time to do that as I would like to do either.
Right.
But I like the challenge, the additional challenge of doing that. Contrary to what most people believe, deer hunting is challenging no matter how you do it.
Yeah.
But I like the additional challenge of doing it with archery.
And you're a huge NASCAR fan. What the heck's the deal with NASCAR, Benjamin?
Well,
why do people get really into this thing?
I used to ask that same question. But I don't know that I'm a huge NASCAR fan, but I am a devoted NASCAR fan. Long story, I'll make it brief. About 8 or 9 years ago, had never even watched it on television, even though I've lived in this part of the country all of my life. But some buddies of mine took me to a race, and camping for the weekend, this sort of thing. And I said, well, I'll enjoy the camping and hanging out with you fellas. I don't really care anything about the race. Well, they took me to the race, and I was hooked.
Yeah.
And now I go to 5 or 6 races a year.
Oh, yeah. Do you follow a particular driver, anyone that you wrap around? I guess that's how you do it. You wrap around a driver, or is it just the whole experience?
Well, I can't say that I dislike any of them, but the first race that I went to, and once again, I'd never even watched it on television, had no idea who I liked or didn't like or who to pull for. So anyway, the 24 car, Jeff Gordon won that race. So I've become a 24 fan since then.
That is spectacular. Golly, well, it's so amazing to see what's happening out there. Of course, I've been to some races, and it is truly amazing. It's particularly exciting to rent rent the headphones and listen to what all the drivers are doing or what's happening with the teams there. Do you remember your first childhood job, Benjamin? Were you involved with the family companies early on?
Yes, I was. I mean, the first job that I had, and this is another one of many things that my sisters and I thank our father for, but we worked in tobacco as children with some folks that my father knew, because we were, they were customers of ours and this sort of thing. And then my next job when I was 11 was working at the tobacco warehouse, where they put tobacco on the floor, sold it. Representatives from R.J. Reynolds or Philip Morris, whoever would come in. They would auction the tobacco, and this is the sort of thing you can hardly see anymore. I don't know that you can see it again because that industry has changed so much. But that was my second job, was working at the warehouse. And then when I got old enough, I drove a truck at Creel Oil Company.
Is that right? Lastly, Benjamin, if you weren't currently the president and CEO of Creel Oil and Gas and of North American Institute of Aviation, what do you think you'd be doing?
I really don't know. I suppose that I would be actively practicing law and working for somebody else, but I don't know that I'm cut out for that.
Inspired by his parents and names like Colonel Tucker and Laverne Creel, a name so many folks know, not only in Horry County but throughout the Southeast. Amazing folks that make a commitment early on to get someone interested in something. Obviously, they stick it out. Take him up on that opportunity to get out and take a flying lesson. Benjamin Creel offers a lot. Benjamin, thanks so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you, Greg.
Absolutely. Stay tuned to more Carolina People coming up next. We want to thank Benjamin Creel and his entire family for making such a huge commitment to Horry County and making today's Carolina People so special.